Hey guys, this is Bridget here from Bridget's Healthy Kitchen, wishing you a wonderful day wherever you are in the world, whatever it is you may be doing. I hope that you are well and I hope that you are safe. Now, thank you for joining me on today's episode of Healthy Cooking. It is a recipe we're doing today is pumpkin soup, and not just any pumpkin soup. I would challenge you to find a pumpkin soup better. It is phenomenal, absolutely delicious. We're going to roast the pumpkin, we're going to give it all these amazing spices and flavors, and then we're going to create what is essentially a pretty healthy soup. But before we get started, I must put in hello to everyone who's joining me. Once again, I'm sorry, I still can't see your I can't see your comments. So Mahay's here. Let me just check one more thing. I've got one more button to push on my phone. See if that works. No, it doesn't. Darn it all, it still doesn't work. But if you are, thank you. If you are joining me, hello to everyone that's joining me today. This is a great recipe. If you are in the middle of winter and you want to make something delicious and hearty, it's definitely all those things. But please let me put out the, it's not a warning, but just so you're aware that when it comes to pumpkin, it's not a vegetable that I cook with very often. The reason why, it's not because it's unhealthy as such. You're going, hang on Bridget, it's a vegetable. And aren't we told to have more vegetables in our lives? And absolutely. And aren't we told to eat the rainbow, you know, and pumpkin is obviously orange. Isn't that just a wonderful thing to do? Absolutely. But here is the point that I want you to be very mindful of. One of the reasons why I don't cook a lot with pumpkin is that pumpkin and other starchy vegetables, so a starchy vegetable tends to be a root vegetable. So I'm talking about obviously potatoes, I'm talking about sweet potatoes, I am talking about pumpkin, of course, I'm talking about parsnip, I'm talking about carrot. So things that tend to be grown underground and they tend to be quite starchy, they will spike your insulin response. So just to be aware that I look at this as a treat food. It's not for everyday use, even though I know that pumpkins are in season now and they are gorgeous, and they totally are. But I would make pumpkin soup maybe once a season. I wouldn't be having this every day because it will spike your insulin response. And you guys all know what that means when your insulin response is spiked. That means you go into fat storing and not fat burning. Yeah, so we want to avoid that, especially if your goal is weight loss. This might be one that you leave out until you're in that maintenance phase of when you're able to maintain your weight. This is absolutely fine. But once again, I definitely look at pumpkin as being a treat food because it's starchy. So now that I've said that, we can get into the recipe because it's still lovely and healthy. It's still going to be dairy-free and gluten-free and sugar-free, of course. And this particular recipe is also vegan as well. So it's vegan-friendly. So come on down to my board. Now, you already know what we're doing because I've been showing off the pumpkin. So come on down here and we can get straight into the recipe. So the pumpkin that I'm using today, and it is, let me just say it again, it is stunning. It is absolutely gorgeous. I am using a Japanese pumpkin. So you can tell it's a Japanese pumpkin just by the coloration of the skin. But you can also use butternut for this because they're all in season. Now you can use butternut. You can also use Kent, which is that lovely big grey one, which is wonderful. You can use, I think it's an Australian blue it's called. So there's lots of varieties of pumpkin that are on the market right now, and they're at a really, really good price, and they are stunning. Hence why we have to pay respect to this gorgeous vegetable and make something really fabulous out of it. So I'm doing enough soup for 4 portions, 4 to 5, depending on how much soup you have, obviously. And for that, I'm using around about 750 grams of pumpkin. Obviously, the seeds have been removed, and I'm also going to remove the skin. So I am going to roast it first, by the way, but in order to make things just a little bit easier when we're on the other end, which means we're actually turning roasted pumpkin into soup, you definitely want to peel it first. It just makes it easier, but use a sharp knife. Definitely use a sharp knife, and what you want to try to do when you are peeling it is go as close as you can to the skin, because you don't want to have big wastages of pumpkin. You want to use up as much pumpkin as you can. So just take your time, sharp knife, work your way down around the pumpkin. But the reason we take our time is we want to make sure that we don't waste any of this gorgeous, gorgeous vegetable. And especially if you are treating yourself, which we are today, we're definitely treating ourselves to a bit of pumpkin soup. But you know, if you are saying, well, is there other soups that you could have instead of this, then absolutely. And the beauty about soup is, and especially the soups that I have in the yellow book, so Bridget's Healthy Kitchen. If you go and have a look at in Bridget's Healthy Kitchen, you will notice that I have quite a few different soups in there. And as you start looking at those soups, the other thing you will notice is that none of them are blended. So the other, I suppose, caveat that I need to say about this particular soup here is that when it comes to blended soups, you also want to limit the amount of times you have those as well. Does that make sense? The reason why you are limiting the amount of times you have a blended soup is because you are essentially blending up all the fibre, and so the soup will go through you very, very quickly. It won't spend much time in your gut at all, and because it's not spending much time in your gut is not extracting that many nutrients from it. So when you have a soup with big chunks of vegetables in it, or maybe you've even got a whole bit of bok choy, you know, there's some dumplings in there, all those recipes are in the yellow book. I've got quite a few different soup recipes in there. Those soups are going to be a lot better, especially if your goal is weight loss. So just to be mindful of that if you do like soups, and your goal is weight loss, you want to avoid have it blended as a treat. And if you definitely want to do a blended soup, of course, you could try this one. But I also have another really wonderful blended soup in the green book in More, which is my broccoli soup. So as you know, broccoli is a really good vegetable and it makes fabulous, fabulous soup. So you can do that. So what you notice I'm doing with the pumpkin is I'm chopping it up nice and small. The reason why I'm chopping it up nice and small is we want it to cook really fast. And I've got my oven set on 200 degrees, which is 390 degrees Fahrenheit. Because we're going to pop it in there and we are going to give it a really, really decent roast. And it's that roasting action which is going to give this soup the most incredible, seriously, incredible flavour. So pretend I've done all that. Pretend I've cut all that up. And we've got a bowl of diced pumpkin, which is perfect. The next thing that we want to think about doing is actually we're also going to roast our onion in there as well. Just to 750 grams of pumpkin, diced pumpkin, I'm also going to add one medium-sized onion. Once again, just chop it up into chunks. You don't have to have it in thin slices here because it's going to go into that oven and it's going to start to get lovely and caramelized. And literally, that is the key to the success of this soup and why I say it's the best ever. So now that that's at that point, that's all the vegetables we're going to put in there, we can think about the spices we're going to add. And I'm going to add 3 different spices today. The first spice I'm adding is just a mild curry powder. So I'm adding about a tablespoon, but it's a nice heaped tablespoon of curry powder. I'm also going to add in some coriander powder. And for the coriander, I'm after about 3/4 of a tablespoon. And yes, you're going, that's a lot of spices. Trust me on this. Trust me, it is fabulous. And the last spice I'm going to add in there is 3/4 of a tablespoon of cumin powder as well goes in. We haven't finished giving it goodness. We're also going to add a teaspoon of salt. It's going to go in there. Might as well add some pepper too, just a bit of pepper if you want. And then I'm going to take 2 tablespoons of sticky sauce. Notice I'm doing all this in the bowl. I'll show you why in a second. I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of Bridget's sticky sauce, about that much. And the very last thing I want to add into it, and this is going to help to give us that caramelization, which is really going to take it to a whole new level. I'm adding some fibre syrup. So I'm adding 1.5 tablespoons of fibre syrup. Just kind of drizzle that on. This fibre syrup is what is going to make it delicious because we want it to become quite caramelized and golden as it roasts in the oven. So give it a good mix. Make sure you're getting all those spices blended in really, really well all over the pumpkin, all over the onion. You're getting sticky sauce in there. You're getting the fibre syrup in there. And I mean, even just like that, you're like, yeah, you know that's going to taste good, right? Already, you're like, yeah, that looks yummy. And it does. So over to our tray, our roasting tray. A little bit of baking paper down, which will just help when it comes to the washing up. A little bit of baking paper onto our tray. And when you pop this onto your roasting tray, just make sure that you flatten it out. So you want sort of a single layer. That once again is just going to help things to cook faster. And rather than steaming and not getting, you know, lovely and caramelized, that's what would happen if we kind of had it all bunched up. But because we've got it nicely well placed, nice and even, single layers, that's going to roast really evenly, and then you have got all the surface area for it to caramelize. So this thing goes into the oven, just like that, and then you pop that into the oven at 200 degrees or 390 degrees Fahrenheit, and that'll be in there for between 30 to 35 minutes, all right? So I'll pop it over there, because here's what I prepared earlier. Here we go. After 30 minutes, it's gonna look like that. How good is that? That's pretty good, right? That looks delicious, and you can see. Look how caramelized it is. You have literally roasted some pretty delicious pumpkin. Even if you wanted to like do this for Sunday roast one day and do the spices and the fiber syrup and the sticky sauce with big chunks of pumpkin, you would end up having the most gorgeous caramelized pumpkin just like that. So it's a really nice combination of spices that just work so well with pumpkin. So once it's at this point, all we need to think about doing now is the cooking and actually turning it into a soup. Right now it's a delicious roast pumpkin. We'd actually like to turn it into soup. So that is once again really easy as well. So I've got my big soup pot on. I'm going to turn that on to medium to high. And then another reason why baking paper rocks is because you can do this and then put it straight into the pot. Easy. Just like that. Really, really simple. Come up here so you can see it. But yeah. There you go. That's better. Could I do that could you do the roast pumpkin in the air fryer? Yeah, you could do the roast pumpkin in the air fryer. Absolutely you can do that. You just like you would normally do it. Probably the temperature, I would probably drop it ever so slightly. Maybe you want to do it at around about 190 degrees in the air fryer. Depends on how much you're making. So some air fryers, they're quite small, and it's nice to be able to do everything at the same time, hence why I did it in the oven. But if you've got a large air fryer, you've got one with racks, then absolutely go for it. So that is now on. All we need to do now is to grab up some kombu, freshly made kombu. See, here it is. Yeah, it's still there. Yes, the animal from the deep. Well, it's just seaweed. So when it comes to how much kombu to add, what you want to do is you want to pour in enough kombu to just cover the vegetables. That's all you're doing, just enough kombu to cover the vegetables. I think it's around about 500 mils, or just over, just on a pint of kombu water. But it all depends. It all depends on how much pumpkin there is. That's why I haven't given you exact amounts, but just pour your kombu in. And when you have poured it in, just keep an eye on it as it's going in, and you just want it to just cover the vegetables. That's all it needs to do. So the last thing that we're going to put into it, I'm bringing it to the boil by the way now. There we go. The last thing that we're going to be putting into our soup is a little bit of roast garlic. So if you don't have roast garlic, that's fine. You can add raw garlic, but because everything's kind of roasted, I want to keep with the theme. And I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of roasted garlic. That's just a roasted garlic paste that I always have sitting in my fridge, and it's just absolutely wonderful. And when you are doing something along these lines, that roasted garlic is just gonna, it's a marriage when it comes to all these beautiful caramelized flavors that we have attached to our wonderful pumpkin. So bring that to the boil. And while that is coming to the boil, I want to show you guys, because we're nearly there, it's really quick. Like seriously, it's really, really quick. I want to show you guys some alternatives to soups, because like I said, this is a delicious soup, and it is a great way to get some of that beautiful winter pumpkin into your diet, but it's definitely one that you need to be mindful of what it does do, and that it will spike an insulin response from you. So for someone who's potentially pre-diabetic or diabetic, it might be one that you actually want to avoid. But if you're like me and Mahi, we're now into that phase of our lifestyle that we can have foods like this because we're not in major weight loss mode right now. We can have this pumpkin soup, or if you're just having it once in winter season, it's fabulous. But please, please, please just be mindful, it's not an everyday food. I know it's convenient, you make a whole batch and then you can freeze it, which is what we have done in the past, but just be mindful how often you do have it, because it will spike your insulin. And we want to keep our insulin response low, because when our insulin response is low, we are burning fat, which is what you want to be, a fat burning machine. So the types of soups that I have in here, which are literally the opposite, and they will put you in fat burning mode, is something like this one. This is my chicken zucchini noodle soup. I'm not sure if you can see that. That is fabulous. It's on page 127. It uses the kombu water. It has got, as you can see, it has got big pieces of vegetables in there. So you're eating vegetables, you're drinking soup, and then it's got this wonderful chicken through it as well to give you some really good protein too. So soups like that are fabulous. And I've got to tell you, I love soup. No, I honestly really do. It's like I could write a whole book on soups. I love them so much. Here's another one. This is my chicken Chinese cabbage and a tamari broth. So once again, what are you noticing? It's not blended. It's whole pieces of vegetables that are in there, and then there's some goodness from the kombu, and you guys know that the kombu is there to keep your metabolism burning really, really fast and high. That's what kombu is really, really good for. Hence why I use that instead of vegetable or chicken stock. Is because I want to give you guys the biggest opportunity to be in fat burning mode. This is the fat burning book. But if you are, like I said, like me and Mahi, and we can, we're quite comfortable with where we are on our journey, we can start to incorporate foods that are still not everyday foods, because I still don't want to be spiking my insulin like crazy every single day. I'm still very mindful of that hormone and what it actually does, which is store fat. So I would do something like this. If I wanted to have a blended soup, and this is from Bridget's Healthy Kitchen. Obviously all the recipes in here are different from the recipes in the yellow book. This is more recipes. Someone asked me that today and I was like, oh, that's right, that's why I called it more, because there's more recipes. Okay, so here's a soup that you could do that is blended and it's wonderful. This is my turmeric and a roast garlic cauliflower soup. Fabulous. So this is a blended soup that you could have more often, and just look at that. It is stunning, and it's got all the goodness of turmeric in there. I also have a broccoli soup in here, which is really gorgeous. Where are you, Mr. Broccoli? Hello, where are you? I'm pretty sure it's in here. I can't remember. I don't know if it's in here or not. Oh, but I have found this one. This is my detox and heal. Deep garlic broth, chunky, chunky, chunky. Always go for the chunky soups if you can. I will still do blended soups every now and then because I love them, and this is one of them. This pumpkin soup, like I said, it's a treat. So we've got a bit of a boil happening now, which is great. You guys can kind of see that I've got the boiling and the steaming happening. And what we're looking for is just mush a bit of pumpkin on your spoon. And if it's like that, it's ready to rock and roll because all the cooking's been done in the oven. So what you're doing is literally heating up the kombu, you know, cooking off that little bit of roasted garlic that I put in there as well. But that is kind of it. I'm going to turn it off now. And now what we need to do is think about that blending. So I've got my little hand blender here. Step away, unless you want to get pumpkin soup all over you. Start slowly. Start slowly. Start slowly. Many a person has been injured with hot soup. This shouldn't take you too long because obviously your vegetables are very tender. All I'm being very mindful of is I don't want to splash hot soup all over me. So you know what you also can do, which is going to help, you know, we've talked about the difference between a blended soup and say a soup with whole vegetables that requires you to chew, which is also another very helpful way to ensure that you're hitting every single good point of your digestive system is when you chew your food. Really, really important. So what you can also do if you want to is you don't blend it completely. You just blend it and you still have chunks of pumpkin in it. There's nothing wrong with that. So what you will notice, the first thing you're going to notice from my soup is that it's really dark, and it's a lot darker than, you know, what we started off with. We started off with kind of that, And now we've got that, and the reason being is that it's that caramelization, the color that soup naturally took on thanks to the roasting of the spices and the roasting of the pumpkin and the onions. So even right now, you have the most flavoursome soup. I'm going to taste it just to make sure I'm on the right track. Oh my God, you don't have to do anything to it. Just like that, you could literally just serve it like that. You know, taste your soup if you wanted to. Hey, not if you wanted to. Taste your soup. And you might decide, oh yeah, a little bit more salt and that's all I need. And you could literally serve the soup like this. There's so much flavour in there. Thanks to those spices, thanks to that sticky sauce, thanks to the fibre syrup and the roasting. There's so many flavours already. You could literally stop there. Another thing you could do, if you want to make it a little bit creamier, I was thinking about adding a little bit of milk, and I am adding coconut milk. You don't need much, probably only need about 100 mils, if that, of coconut milk. Give it a bit of a stir, and you have a wonderful, wonderful creamy soup. Ah, yummy. It's so delicious. It's so satisfying. It really does warm every single part of you. So I'm going to show you guys how I'm going to serve up our little soup. I need a ladle. Do I have a ladle? See if I've got a ladle somewhere. Alright, we're going to serve up our soup. Where is my plate? Here it is. I thought we would serve it up. Oh, come down here. You need to see. I thought we would serve up our soup. I've got this really, really cute, and this is oven proof as well, cute little soup bowl, which we're going to serve the soup in. And I do like to serve it in a white soup bowl because the colours are just fabulous. Especially because what you've noticed is I didn't completely blend all the pieces, and I didn't completely mix in the coconut milk either. So what you kind of have is this wonderful, swirling action on top of the soup, which looks so, so good. And another thing that you can do, which is really just going to take it to that whole next level, is what I have here is my English style muffins, obviously gluten-free, dairy-free muffins. I've turned them into little croutons. You could do that for a start, but you could also just consider you want to serve some bread on the side of your soup. I would think one of the most perfect accompaniments would be this wonderful almond bread that I make. It takes 2 minutes in the microwave. The recipe is in this book, More from Bridget's Healthy Kitchen. And the great thing about if you buy More from Bridget's Healthy Kitchen, you will also get a free copy of the breads pastry book. Isn't it, Mahi? The ebook that comes with More from Bridget's Healthy Kitchen is actually an ebook with 32 more healthy breads and pastries recipes in it. So it's morefrombridget.com. The recipes in that, if you haven't tried these, they take 2 minutes to make and they are delicious. And yes, you can toast them as well. So you could do something like that on the side. But of course, another little addition is you could take yourself up some coconut yogurt, and you could do this wonderful blob of coconut yogurt in the middle, because I like to have that sort of cold and hot sensation that you get when you break the coconut yogurt and kind of have it in your spoon. And then of course we can just throw on a couple of these wonderful croutons that we made just out of this bread, here. You add some croutons. It's going to soak up into our soup. And then what we are left with is really something quite fabulous, quite gorgeous. Look at that. Who would not like to get that for lunch? You'll be pretty stoked, even for dinner. That is such a nice plate of food, such a nice dish. Let's have a bit of a go, shall we? Let's have a try. Let's see what it tastes like. Soup is my happy place. It really, really is. And I think being a chef all these years, I always liked something that was really easy to make and really easy to eat. And soup was definitely one of my go-tos. Ah, that's so good. Oh my gosh. When you break into the coconut yogurt, and like I said, that little sensation of a little bit hot, a little bit cold, all at the same time, and the flavour, it's just so good. And it's definitely nice to have those little chunks of pumpkin in there too. they're soft. You don't have to do any chewing, too much chewing. You just kind of press down with your tongue. But at the same time, you know you're getting some pretty good stuff there. I shouldn't eat that much. Mahi, do you want some? So there you have it. This is literally the most delicious pumpkin soup that I have personally tasted. I'm sure there's some other great ones out there, but when I consider everything that's not in here, so we've taken out the requirement to have, really salty stocks and maybe someone's added a bit of brown sugar to get the caramelization or some maple syrup. We don't have any of that stuff. What we have is a soup that is pure goodness and so incredibly good for our bodies, but also incredibly good for our souls, because that's what soup's about. So thank you for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed that. Apologies for the late start. We had a busy morning, but we will see you again really soon right here in Bridget's kitchen. Enjoy the soup, enjoy the cooking, and please everyone, take care. See you soon.